The night was unusually silent when Detective Marcus Hale arrived at the Ashford residence. The mansion, perched on a hill at the edge of town, loomed against the pale moonlight like a shadow from another world. Its windows were dark, except for the faint flicker of emergency lights from the officers who had come before him. As Marcus stepped out of his car, the sharp crunch of gravel under his boots echoed in the heavy stillness of the night. The smell of rain mixed with something metallic in the air, a scent he recognized all too well. Death lingered here, cold and merciless. Inside, the grand hallway stretched wide and elegant, though its beauty was marred by chaos. A shattered vase lay in pieces near the staircase, crimson drops staining the marble floor like a grotesque trail. The ornate chandelier swayed gently above as if moved by unseen hands. Marcus followed the sound of muffled voices to the living room, where the first officers on the scene stood pale and rigid. Then he saw it, the carnage that would haunt his thoughts for years to come. The entire Ashford family lay dead. 5 bodies, each placed with chilling precision around the long dining table. Their eyes stared blankly, mouths frozen in silent screams. A feast had been set, plates still filled with untouched food, candles burned down to stubs. Whoever had done this had wanted it to look like dinner was still in progress, a macabre mockery of normal life. Marcus stepped closer, forcing himself to study the details despite the knot tightening in his stomach. The father, Richard Ashford, slumped at the head of the table, his once imposing frame now lifeless. Beside him, his wife Eleanor rested against her chair as if asleep, though the dark wound at her temple told the truth. Across from them sat their 2 teenage children, Anna and Luke, and at the far end, Richard's elderly mother, Agnes. The killer had left no survivors. Marcus scanned the table and noticed something that made his pulse quicken. There was a 6th chair, empty and neatly tucked in, its plate spotless. Someone had been expected, or had escaped. He turned to the nearest officer, a young man whose face was ashen. Who found them? The officer swallowed hard before answering. The housekeeper. She came in at 8 this evening, found the door unlocked. Marcus nodded slowly, his mind already racing. An unlocked door, a staged dinner scene, and an entire family wiped out. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. This was planned, methodical. He crouched near the table, examining the wine glasses. 5 were stained with red wine, except for one. Anna's glass was filled with water, untouched. Why? He glanced at her plate, barely touched as well. Did she know something before it happened? Or was she the first to die? The house creaked softly, and Marcus felt the weight of the mansion pressing in on him. He asked to see the rest of the house. The officers led him upstairs, where the bedrooms stood eerily undisturbed. No signs of struggle, no overturned drawers, no missing valuables. Whoever killed them didn't come for money. They came for something else, something personal. In the master bedroom, Marcus noticed a framed photograph on the nightstand. Richard Ashford, shaking hands with a man Marcus didn't recognize. The frame was smudged, as if handled recently. He picked it up carefully, staring at the stranger's sharp features, the smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Who are you?" Marcus muttered under his breath. Back in the living room, the forensic team worked in silence, snapping photographs and collecting samples. Marcus approached the dining table again, this time focusing on the candles. All 5 had burned almost to the base, wax pooling on the silver holders. That meant they'd been lit for hours. The family had been sitting there for a long time, waiting for someone, and then death came. But how? There were no obvious signs of poisoning, no overturned chairs, no spilled drinks. Yet the wounds on Richard and Eleanor suggested close-range gunshots, while the children bore no bullet wounds at all. Marcus's gut twisted. Different methods for different victims. Why? He stepped back, trying to piece the puzzle together. Someone had gone through great lengths to stage this scene. It wasn't rage. It wasn't impulse. This was ritual. The kind of crime that speaks if you know how to listen. And Marcus intended to listen. As he stood there, his eyes drifted once more to the empty chair. 6 seats, 5 bodies. Was it for the killer? Or for someone who never showed up? A chill ran down his spine. The storm outside deepened, wind howling against the windows like a mournful dirge. Somewhere in that house, in the lingering shadows and echoes of laughter long gone, a story was waiting to be told, a story written in blood. And Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whoever orchestrated this wasn't finished yet. The rain had not stopped by morning. It drummed against the windows of the Ashford mansion like impatient fingers, washing the night's blood into the soil. Detective Marcus Hale stood in the foyer, reviewing the preliminary report in his hand. No forced entry, no defensive wounds, no sign of theft. The killer or killers had been let in willingly. That fact settled like lead in Marcus's gut. It meant trust. It meant someone the family knew. And that narrowed the field in a way that made his instincts itch. He requested that all household staff remain on the property for questioning. The first to enter the study was the housekeeper, Mrs. Doyle, a stout woman in her 50s with trembling hands and eyes swollen from tears. She twisted her apron nervously as Marcus sat across from her, voice calm but firm. "When you arrived last night, what did you see?" She swallowed hard. "The door, it wasn't locked. That's never happened before. I walked in and her voice broke as the memory dragged her under." Marcus gave her a moment, watching closely. "And the family? Had they been expecting guests?" Her brow furrowed as if that thought had never occurred to her. "Not that I knew of, sir. They said nothing to me." A pause. Then hesitantly, "But, Mrs. Ashford, she seemed uneasy these last few days." Marcus's pen stilled. Uneasy how? Mrs. Doyle wrung her hands tighter, like she was afraid of something. She barely slept, kept checking the windows at night. That slotted into place with the unlocked door. But why leave it open if she feared someone? Next came the family's driver, Peter Lang. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the sun-worn skin of a man used to long hours on the road. He walked in with a measured calm that struck Marcus as unnatural. "You drove Mr. Ashford yesterday. Did he say anything unusual?" "No, sir. Just business." Marcus studied him. "What time did you leave?" "Around 7. Marcus flipped his notebook. "The housekeeper found the bodies at 8. Peter's expression didn't flicker, but his eyes shifted just slightly, just enough. Marcus leaned forward. "Anyone see you after 7? A faint pause. Stopped for gas. "No receipt, though." Marcus filed that away. No proof of where he was for an hour. Too neat to be coincidence. By late afternoon, the storm had thickened to a gray curtain outside the windows. Marcus stood in the dining room again, staring at the table as forensics cleared the last of their equipment. Something still gnawed at him. He moved to Anna's chair, the one with water instead of wine. She had barely eaten. A teenager skipping dinner wasn't unusual, but combined with the untouched glass, it felt deliberate. Was she refusing the toast, or was she already dead when the others were alive? He circled the table slowly, noting details he'd missed in the chaos. A small smear of lipstick on Eleanor's napkin, faint and rushed, Richard's phone missing from his pocket, and then near Luke's plate, a folded scrap of paper. Marcus pulled on gloves and opened it carefully. 3 words scrawled in hurried ink: "Don't trust him." His pulse kicked hard. Who wrote it, and who was him? He slipped the note into an evidence bag and headed back to the study. There he spread the photographs on the desk, lining up faces like pieces of a broken mirror. Richard, Eleanor, Anna, Luke, Agnes, 5 lives, 5 stories, all silenced in one night. But the note was a voice screaming through the silence. And if the writer left it behind, maybe they knew death was coming. Marcus called in the last person for questioning, a woman who arrived late, hair damp from the rain, perfume clinging to her coat like a stubborn memory. Olivia Vance, family friend. Marcus had seen her name on the guest lists for every Ashford gala in the past 3 years. Her connection to Richard was more than casual. He could tell by the way her eyes scanned the room now, as if searching for something only she understood. "When did you last see the family?" Marcus asked. Olivia smiled, but it was brittle, a mask stretched too tight. 2 nights ago. Dinner party. "You weren't here last night?" "No," she said quickly, too quickly. Marcus let the silence breathe, watching her squirm. Did Richard ever mention trouble? Enemies? Her lips curved in a humorless smile. Richard collected enemies the way some men collect art, but none bold enough to do this. Her gaze slid to the photographs on the desk, and for the briefest second, Marcus saw something flicker in her eyes. Not grief. Something sharper. Something dangerous. When Olivia left, Marcus remained seated, staring at the rain-streaked window. The storm was easing, but inside the house, the air felt heavier than ever. The unlocked door, the empty chair, the rushed smear of lipstick, the note whispering its warning. Pieces of a puzzle with edges that didn't fit yet. He reached for his notebook and wrote 2 questions in thick black ink. Who was missing, and who left the message? He underlined both twice, the pen biting into the paper. Outside, thunder rolled low, distant but ominous. Marcus didn't know it yet, but the answers to those questions would drag him into a darkness far deeper than he imagined. The next morning broke under a pale sun that did nothing to lift the weight pressing down on the Ashford estate. Detective Marcus Hale hadn't slept. His mind churned through questions that only bred more questions. He stood at the edge of the property, coffee cooling in his hand, staring at the hills shrouded in mist. Somewhere out there, someone was smiling, someone who had turned a family dinner into a slaughterhouse. Marcus clenched his jaw. He would find them. He had to. But as he walked back inside, an officer approached with a face tight with urgency. "Detective," the young man said, voice low. "Peter Lang is gone." Marcus stopped cold. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" The officer swallowed. "He left the guest house early this morning, took his car, left his phone behind." Marcus's mind snapped into gear, adrenaline cutting through exhaustion. The driver, already suspicious, now vanishing like smoke. He barked orders into the hallway. "APB on Lang. Check every gas station, every road out of town. I want eyes everywhere." As the team scrambled, Marcus returned to the study, the silence louder than ever. Lang had lied yesterday. Marcus had felt it in his bones, but was running proof of guilt or fear. The note surfaced in his mind. Don't trust him. Was it about Lang, or someone else entirely? Hours passed with no sign of the driver. By afternoon, Marcus's phone rang. The call was from a neighboring county, a car abandoned on a rural road, miles from anywhere. Marcus drove there himself, gravel spitting under his tires, heart pounding with the rhythm of sirens in his head. When he arrived, the vehicle sat half hidden by trees, dew clinging to the windshield like tears. The driver's door hung open. Inside, no signs of struggle, no blood. But in the trunk, Marcus found something that turned his stomach to ice. A single leather glove, stained dark at the
fingertips. Forensics confirmed later, it was Richard Ashford's blood. And under the glove lay a second object, a photograph of Olivia Vance, creased from handling. On the back, one word scrawled in the same hurried hand as the note: liar. Back at the mansion, Olivia's name burned in Marcus's thoughts like a brand. She'd lied about something. He was sure of it. When he summoned her for a second interview, she arrived calm, too calm, as though rehearsed. Marcus laid the photograph on the desk between them, watching her mask crack in slow motion. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the chair, knuckles white. Care to explain? He asked softly. Olivia's eyes flicked to the photo, then back to him, a glimmer of defiance igniting in their depths. Where did you find that? She whispered. Does it matter? Marcus said, voice hardening. What matters is why Peter Lang had it, and why your name is written behind it. For the first time, Olivia faltered. Her mouth opened, then closed, and then, to Marcus's astonishment, she laughed. Low, bitter, like glass breaking. You think I had something to do with this? Her voice rose sharp as a blade. Richard was going to ruin me, detective. But kill his whole family? Even I'm not that cruel. Marcus leaned forward. Then who is? Her silence stretched, thick with something heavier than fear. When she finally spoke, it was almost a whisper. You don't understand what Richard was involved in. Marcus's pulse hammered. Then make me understand. But Olivia only shook her head slowly, eyes shining with something close to pity. If I tell you, I'm dead. She stood abruptly, her perfume lingering like a threat, and walked out before Marcus could stop her. He stared after her, frustration clawing at his chest. Whatever secret she carried, it was the kind people killed to bury. That night, as darkness folded over the estate, Marcus sat alone in the dining room, the ghosts of the Ashford family around him. The empty chair at the table loomed larger than ever, a silent witness to everything unsaid. He sifted through evidence again, chasing patterns that refused to settle. And then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered, tension coiling in his gut. A voice, distorted and low, slid through the line like oil. You're looking in the wrong place, detective. Marcus's blood ran cold. Who is this? The voice chuckled, soft and cruel. Check the well. The line went dead. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed a flashlight and headed out into the night, the wind clawing at his coat, the earth soft underfoot from yesterday's rain. The old well stood at the edge of the property, ringed by weeds, its stones slick with moss. He knelt, shining the beam into the black throat of the earth. For a moment, nothing. Then the light caught something pale and twisted at the bottom. Marcus's stomach turned. Rope, and beneath it, flesh, a body, crumpled like a broken doll. He called for backup, voice tight with fury. When the team hauled the corpse up an hour later, Marcus stared into the dead face and felt the world tilt beneath him. It was Peter Lang. The discovery of Peter Lang's body shattered what little certainty Marcus had left. Standing by the well under the thin wash of moonlight, he stared at the pale face of the man he had suspected only hours ago. Dead men don't run, he thought grimly. Someone had silenced him, and done it fast. The rope burns around Lang's wrists, and the bruises on his throat spoke of a struggle, one he hadn't won. Whoever killed him wanted him quiet, and that meant Lang had known something worth dying for. By dawn, the mansion hummed with the low murmur of voices and the shuffle of boots. Forensics combed through Lang's quarters again, and this time they found something Marcus couldn't ignore. A ledger, tucked behind a loose floorboard. Its pages were dense with numbers, dates and cryptic initials, but one name leapt out like a spark in the dark. Richard A., followed by amounts that could buy a city block. And beneath them, a second name, scribbled in the margin, almost as an afterthought. O. Vance. Marcus turned the book over in his hands, a hollow feeling settling in his chest. This wasn't just money. It was laundering on a scale that whispered organized crime. And if Olivia Vance was entangled in it, Richard's murder wasn't about family. It was about power. He summoned Olivia again, this time without the courtesy of a polite request. When she walked into the study, her composure was gone. No mask, no brittle smile, just a woman who looked cornered. Marcus slid the ledger across the desk, his eyes locked on hers. You want to tell me why your name is in Richard Ashford's private accounts? Olivia's lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Then she exhaled sharply, the fight draining from her shoulders. Because I was the one moving the money. Her voice was raw, stripped of pretense. Richard trusted me. Too much. He thought I'd keep my mouth shut no matter what. Marcus leaned forward, his tone like iron. What was he into? Olivia hesitated, then said the words like poison. Guns, high-end weapons, to people who shouldn't have them. The weight of it slammed into Marcus like a blow. The Ashford patriarch, the picture of old money and charm, running guns in the shadows. No wonder someone wanted him dead. But something still didn't add up. Why kill his whole family? Marcus demanded. Olivia's eyes glistened, and for the first time, real fear bled into her voice. Because Richard wasn't the only one profiting. He had a partner. Marcus felt the chill crawl up his spine. Who? She held his gaze, tears pooling now. Someone very close to him. Someone who was here that night. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Marcus stared at her, reading the tremor in her hands, the way she couldn't bring herself to say the name. When she finally spoke, it was barely a breath. Luke Ashford, barely 22, charming, aimless. The golden boy with too much money and too few rules. Could he have orchestrated this? Marcus remembered the photographs, Luke's arm slung carelessly around friends, his smirk like a dare. It fit in a way that made Marcus's stomach turn. But Luke was dead. Or was he? Marcus stood abruptly, the chair legs scraping the floor. You're sure? Olivia nodded, misery etched into her face. He wanted to take everything. Richard wouldn't let him. They fought, Luke said. He said if he couldn't have it, no one would. Her voice cracked, splintering into silence. Marcus didn't wait. He stormed to the evidence room, pulling up autopsy reports, photographs, anything on Luke. And then the first thread unraveled. Luke's body burned beyond recognition after the fire Richard started in the fireplace. Dental records confirmed the ID, but the report noted something Marcus hadn't seen before. No sign of smoke in the lungs. Luke hadn't breathed when the fire consumed him. Because Luke was already dead, or because that wasn't Luke at all. The thought sliced through Marcus like a blade. If Luke was alive, everything changed. And if he was alive, where the hell was he? The answer came with the wind, a low groan of hinges. Marcus froze. The sound drifted from the far end of the hallway. A door, one he hadn't opened before. He followed it, boots whispering against the floor, hand resting on the grip of his gun. The door led to the basement stairs, yawning like a throat into darkness. He descended slowly, the air growing colder with each step, the smell of damp stone crawling into his lungs. At the bottom, his beam cut through the black and landed on chains. Heavy iron shackles bolted to the wall. And in the corner, a mattress, stained and ragged. Someone had been kept here. Recently, a voice floated from behind him, soft as silk and twice as deadly. Took you long enough, detective. Marcus spun, gun up, heart hammering. And there he was, Luke Ashford, alive, leaning against the wall like a king in exile, his smile carved from pure malice. His eyes glittered in the dark, feral and cold. You've been chasing ghosts, he said, stepping forward, slow and sure. But the fun's just getting started. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger, but Luke only laughed, low and cruel, and the sound slithered into the dark like smoke. For a heartbeat, Marcus couldn't move. Luke stood there in the basement like a shadow carved into flesh, his grin a jagged wound across his face. The silence throbbed, heavy with the stink of damp stone, and the metallic tang of chains. Marcus raised his gun higher, voice like steel, hands where I can see them. Luke chuckled, slow and low, like he had all the time in the world. You think you figured it out, don't you? His tone was almost gentle, mocking. You think I killed them all, tied up every loose end, buried Daddy's empire with a neat little bow. Cute theory, detective. Too bad it's wrong. Marcus's jaw tightened. You were supposed to be dead. Luke spread his arms in a theatrical sweep. And yet here I am. Didn't you ever wonder why the body burned so easily? Why the dental records were the only thing left? His grin sharpened. Because I gave them someone else's teeth. Marcus's pulse spiked. He'd guessed as much, but hearing it confirmed turned his stomach. So what? You staged your death and slaughtered your family for money. Luke's eyes glittered. Not money. Power. Richard thought he could cut me out of his empire, hand it to outside.